like because the whole key is getting below your means for like a chunk of time, though.
Yep.
Like, because once you do that for like a chunk of time, you typically don't gotta look back. But that chunk of time got to be significant and it's got to be consistent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, not
And
substantial.
so like once you do get that, like most niggas, at some point either late 20s, early 30s, they get that job where they get like a significant bump. You know what I'm saying? And when they get that bump, like you said, everything else bump.
Yep.
Well,
If you don't pay attention, yeah, all you
everything,
did was just
yeah,
stack up more bills.
The
yep,
facts.
yep.
And it happens slowly too. Like a lot of time you don't even like, and it's not a lot of time it's not even intentional. It's just something that I got it. Let me just I can add that to it. I can I can instead of going with the the sirloin, I can get the prime rib. You just creep up. You just
You
step
treat
up.
myself. You
And
start
then
treating
also,
yourself a
No
lot
question.
more.
With a treat, it don't even be treating yourself. It'd be like it's just how I live now.
and then and the funny thing is
That's how I live now.
you validated on what you deserve too. Like you be validating it in your head, like, man, I done pulled this $40 and I deserve to
I
have this.
deserve this big.
I deserve to try
I
this.
deserve this big steak.
Yeah.
And you deserve that empty ass bank account at the end of the
Nah,
month.
the facts.
Nah,
And then when you start
putting
putting
a whole bunch of money.
and then when you
Yeah.
start putting that credit into it,
Facts.
then that's where you got that, you know what I mean, that credit card.
That's when it snowballs. Like you got to get away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it get dangerous. But before we get too far into it, I say welcome back to the To Be Fair Show. I'm your host Johnny P,
Over here, real.
It's Q.
and today we got special guests kicking off
Yes,
our
sir. Yes,
series
sir.
on marriage. We got G in the building.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm really excited to hop into this one. Get to know bro. This Quint's homie, so I'll throw to Quint and let him kind
Oh well,
of
shit. Yeah, I
introduce
think
him.
it's a good space for you to kind of like intro yourself a little bit. I know you're a man of multiple talents. Yeah.
Yeah, man. G. Uh, right now, I just like to call myself a content creator, an artist. Like, I just feel like I'm an artist at heart, and now I had a history of making music, and now I'm driven on making podcast content. So
Okay, dope.
that's why I
that's
see
fire.
myself as just podcasts. I have a podcast called the G Shit Podcast. You can follow it, GSH Pod, hashtag GSH Pod. Everywhere, YouTube, that's the handle, GSH Pod. So that's where you can keep up with me if you're curious or interested. But I'm glad to be on, talk about marriage, because my podcast is centered around 5 F's: family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future.
Dope.
And so this just fits
Sheesh.
along the lines of what I
That's
like to talk
everything.
about.
Sheesh.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm
I
more than
like
happy to
that.
have a
No.
conversation on that.
No, I like that. Those we don't have the 5 F's, but those are 5 pillars that we stand on over here too, for sure. Stuff that we talk about, family, friends, finances, the future, all of that is stuff that we, I think all black people have to get into that space to where that's what we discuss more so than like the frivolous, the white noise out there, the distractions. We start focusing on our actual pillars and what we stand on. It's gonna always, benefit us in the long run for sure.
That's a fact. So I guess G, we could kind of start the conversation off with. So how long have you been married?
Got married September 2013. So this year will be 10 years.
That's what's up. Congratulations, brother.
Appreciate
That's
that.
that
Appreciate
milestone, that 10 that you done seen. You done
10 is
seen
the
some
number.
things.
Yes,
you done
sir.
seen some things.
Yes, sir.
So
That's dope.
I guess with that, because you still look fairly young. I ain't gonna throw your age out there.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that, brother. Hey, you can throw the age out there, but I get carded from time to
Oh
time.
no, I do too.
So it's like, hey, look, hey, I'll take it, you know?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Me too. I get carded too. I get carded too.
But nah. So of 10 years, y'all started and was certain on each other fairly young, right?
I guess so. I mean, yeah, fairly young.
I guess inside like today's societal standards, you got married inside like early 20s. I'm guessing.
Yeah, 24, 25, somewhere in that range.
How long were y'all dating before you got married?
So we got married September 2013, and I met her at a club. May.
Who said you don't find love in a club?
I met her at a bar at a club in May 2012. So it was like met her May 2012 at a club, got married September 2013.
Oh, y'all.
That
That,
was
that shit was quick. So hold on. All right. So this is a great space
Yeah,
to
this is
start it at.
good. Yeah,
All right.
I love to
So
have this conversation, especially with niggas. I mean, brothers or however we go. I want to have this conversation with peers.
Yeah.
More specifically, because I do think I have a very unique approach and experience, but I also want to talk to other people too, because I think we as us have a lot of fears and hesitancies toward that idea of marriage. And I understand like they're legitimate, but like anything else, like how to face those fears and use something to your advantage versus make excuses to not take advantage of something that could be so valuable, I think is where we got to start shifting the mindset.
Gotcha. So what made you know that early? Because that sounds like it was within a year that you got married, right?
So yeah, all right. So this is the thing. This is where I say I'm kind of a little off because I'm a serial monogamist, right? So even so, when I met my wife, I was living with my ex.
Jeez.
Living with my
Hey,
ex.
ladies, y'all hear that? He can actually effectively cohabitate with his ex and still be the one. He ain't always running game. That's all.
And at the time when I was dating, that's another. So met my so
You wasn't dipping back with the ex though, right? Just making sure.
like
All right, never
okay,
mind.
so
Never mind.
so here's the thing. When I met my wife, I was out here.
Okay.
I had
You was outside.
I was in a whole phase, frankly.
Yeah.
Like because that relationship that I was in was like a high school through college. That was like a 6 year sort of like at the time.
I met this person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
at that time, that was like a 6 year committed sort of thing, and it had made its way from high school senior sweetheart and sort of off and on through undergrad. You feel me? And then when we moved in. I think the lease was like in August, and we had broken up by like February.
That cohabitation was a bitch.
Yeah, but we had already had broken up and gotten back together. It was a silly decision in retrospect, but it just was what it was. Like,
So,
didn't
all right,
want to stay at home, so I was like, "Fuck it, I'll stay with my girl."
so that in itself kind of leads to like an interesting spot where you was with a woman for 6 years. It sounds like,
Undergrad.
and you ended up breaking up with her, but then marrying somebody within a year. So
Yeah.
we hear red flags a lot. So what was the green flag that you seen with Shorty that made her stand out and be different?
So the thing about what I would say, about her, one of the things that was important for me was respect. And when I say respect, meaning my boundaries. So, like for example, you may have used to hung up the phone on niggas, but I said I don't do that. So once you do that, I won't communicate. Like that's how like I have certain boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And so like as it relates to our boundaries, she had the utmost respect for like our boundaries and what I as a trait that I had not quite found yet, which I'll say in black women is that at that time, like a lot of girls were like, I wasn't good enough. One. Like let's be clear. Like I had a regular nonprofit sort of type job making barely 30,000 a year. And you meet a bitch or somebody at that time, and they're like, "What's your career? What's your career?" I'm like, "I'm 25.
Right.
Yeah,
I just got out of Winston. What
trying
you
to figure
talking
it out.
like, but like this expect. So I was not good enough, frankly. All right, and so the fact that I met her out of the blue, she had what she was going on, and she didn't treat me like that. She didn't treat me like that. And the other thing that was a good thing for me personally was that when we had our disagreements, this was the first woman who didn't go out of her way to make me mad, frankly. I was like, oh, this is great. This is what you like when you angry? Shit.
Yeah.
That's why I tell my wife, like, your worst is like, I'll take it any day.
Right. That's
Any day.
That right there sounds like I would say that's a very important statement. Just the idea of like, how far do you take it when you are angry? because at the end of the day, that right there that's to me like you should when you're in the vetting process as we talk about all the time. That's one of those main ones. Like you said, respect is like just a mutual respect. How far are you willing to take things from and like does this actual action add up to the reaction? Do you go from 0 to 100 on everything, or is it going to be situational based? You know what I mean? And oftentimes, like I've seen where, even just speaking with the homies, where it doesn't. It's not like let's say they don't have like some of the women don't have let's like a scale for things. So like I did this, and then the actual reaction meets the action, and then if as things get worse, then you should see a worse a response to it. But a lot of the times it's 0 to 100 just off of the strength of me being defensive.
Right.
So yeah, no,
Let,
that's
let
dope.
me ask you this, bro. You said like the respect for your boundaries. There like a conversation where you had to lay out like the certain boundaries, or it was something where she just naturally
So
understood.
no, there's no natural understanding in relationships.
Okay.
Like you as a partner have to tell your partner what the expectation is.
Okay.
Because and it's up to me to see like do I agree or do I disagree? But I have to communicate where the line is. Like if I'm dating you and I'm building with you, you got to tell me what you're expecting from me, not just today, but maybe long term, because I got to meet your expectations, and vice versa. Like if I'm going to build with you, like I need certain things so I can be the best version of me too. And there's no assumptions in that. Like I know me way like she's great, but I know me way better than so I
Anybody
gotta
else? Oh
like,
yeah.
especially upon meeting, I gotta be very clear. Like this is what I need from you, and this is what if you do this, it's a like I like again. If I was dating a girl and something as simple as I told you like I don't do hanging up the phone on me. Once you hang up the phone that one time when I've communicated that, it's like that's the reddest of flags.
Right.
I'm not even wasting my time with you anymore. Like you don't even follow simple like respect.
No, it's facts.
I'm not dealing with anybody that doesn't follow simple respect for what I feel
You got
is
going
common
on.
respect. So yeah.
No, I dig it. I think all those super valid green flags to really look at. I guess we change gears. I don't even know if it's changing gears, but kind of move the conversation forward a little bit. Where I think it'd be good to understand inside this time of like we almost can call this like the post Kevin Samuels era, right? Where we hear about the modern traditional X, Y, and Z. Uh, how would you classify your relationship? Would you put it aside like either one of those boxes of like being like a more traditional relationship, a more modern where maybe it's two people working X, Y, and Z? I don't know.
So
How would you?
so yeah, I like the way you asked that because this is where I think we often struggle as a community because I often say to people all the time I have a sales background, and when I'm doing sales training I tell people how you communicate is so key, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could tell somebody that something is cool, but I'm not talking about the temperature.
Mm-hmm.
I could say it's fly, but it's not in the sky. When we communicate, we'll be using words, but we don't even have the same definitions for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk about traditional versus modern, like I think our shit is traditional in the standpoint that like even that we're husband and wife, frankly, like
Gotcha. So I guess
it's like that shit is old school, like, and we don't have open relationships. We ain't with that bullshit, like.
So I guess if I define, because we've actually had a couple episodes where we took the time to more so define out what modern looks like, what traditional looks like, so that going to what you're saying, we're not all saying the same word with different meanings. And which, if I recall properly, traditional meaning that the guy is the head of the household, the woman kind of submissive inside that sense. He is the breadwinner. She has the ability to to work if she wants, but her money is not necessarily like I
A
wouldn't say a
necessity.
value, but it's not
A
essential.
necessity.
Nah, we ain't on that. Nah, we ain't on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and modern is more so like the idea of like the quote unquote partnership, where it's not necessarily as submissive or both. It might be submissive, but I wouldn't say both ways because I think even in the traditional relationship, it's still submissiveness inside both capacities. It just looks differently. But in general, there's more of an egalitarian approach to the relationship, and both incomes are kind of like put together, and decisions are made inside a little bit more of a mutual understanding than more so of a following leader. I mean, following the person leading type of thing.
I think we have a modern approach to a traditional relationship.
All right, unpack it.
So traditional in the sense that, like when I met my wife, I courted her.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for everything, every date.
Mm-hmm.
I met her at a bar. I told her, we talked on the phone the next day, and I was about to go out of town for work. So I said, look, let me pick you up tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go do something before I leave. Otherwise, I'm like, fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
I got options. You feel what I'm saying? Like but that was how I
Niggas day
approached.
trade.
That's how I was approaching at the time. Cause it was like, look, I met you. Like, there was no expectation.
Yeah.
So, and I'm leaving town, so I'm just trying to do something before I leave.
Mm-hmm.
I insisted that I pick her up. You see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So I picked her up, and I courted her. I paid for every date, every outing while we were getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
So traditional standpoint that I asked for her hand in marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I went to her father. I went to her mother.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the family and said, look, this is what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by I gave her a wedding ring.
Right.
Non-traditional, we had our wedding after our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We got married in a courthouse on the border in Texas with 2 Mexican witnesses. September 2013. Had a wedding October 2014 where nobody knew we had already been married a year, except maybe our parents and some close friends. So modern in that we didn't do everything the same way. Also, she was a diplomat when I met her. She was finishing up grad school at Duke.
Mm-hmm.
And when I met her in May, she was moving to DC in July. So that's the other thing. It's like I met her in May, she moved to DC in July. Then we had a long distance relationship from Durham to DC from July until she moved to Mexico in December, when we both got in a car from DC and drove from DC to the border and crossed over to Mexico. That was Christmas. So like from me and her in May to fucking Christmas at the end of that year, she had already relocated down to Mexico and we had made that drive.
Mm-hmm.
So like none of that is like traditional to me. And I had to make a decision if I was going to give up what I was doing to make sure that I had her.
Okay.
That to me is the not traditional piece to this.
Gotcha. So I guess to even like drill in closer, or not closer, like more even, yeah, just make it more specific. So now we unpack that inside like the relationship dynamics portion of it, in which a lot of times me and Rail, we almost stand on opposite ends a lot of times when it comes to like a lot of relationship dynamics and um like just the inner workings of what it looks like actually being inside a long-term partnership, and like some of those things. If we was to use those same words, traditional, modern, how would you ascribe kind of how y'all kind of work things up?
Yeah, so when I met, so this is where it's like if I could take a step back to that younger in our mid 20s, and y'all tell me if I'm off here. Most of us being straight men in that phase have this idea that we shouldn't necessarily be thinking about marriage until we have certain career, till we have certain finances, till we have certain things checked off our own accomplishment list. Most of us,
That's
I think.
facts. I think that's fair.
I don't think I was just thinking about marriage. So I didn't even have like a full concept of me.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm listening.
So
But no, I get what he's saying as far as
Yeah.
like in your 20s, you don't think about like I'm not gonna be married until you get to a certain level, or you push it off until you reach.
it's not even a thought, or there's an excuse, a real quote unquote excuse to not even pursue it because I'm so focused on getting to the bag or establishing a career or going after a dream or
That's a great question. Like thinking about when you started thinking about marriage as a serious concept. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I know for me, it probably there's always been like a piece in the back of my head where, because I have a son that I'm not with his mother, and I do remember when she got pregnant. The first thing my mother said is, "Are you going to marry her?" And so like that was thrown out there, but I was in college at that time, so it wasn't like a serious little thing that I considered for real, for real. But I don't know. I think probably for me it was probably around like 25, 26. I started dating with more intention, in which I was looking for the outcome to eventually be marriage. Before that, I was kind of in the whole phase for sure.
So, like I said, I've been a like when I was with that college sweetheart, there was an expectation that we was probably going to get married. Like there was like family, like there was family involved. Like
So that's always kind of been something heavy right here in your head.
even before that, I got daddy issues.
Okay.
So I hated going to school and having a different last name than my mom. I hated that as a kid. Personally, I was like, "This some bullshit." Her name ain't Miss Austin. You feel what I'm that for me? See, I got put in anger management in elementary, and I used to ask my mom, like, she said, "Yeah, looking back, I think maybe you did have some anger built up because of your dad, right?" But like, what bothered me is like feeling like I didn't have what other people had.
Gotcha. So, just a quick question to stay on top. So, did you grow up inside a two-parent household, or was it
It was
mom?
me and my mom up until she got married when I was in about fourth grade. And
Okay.
that's when she married my step pop. And I have step siblings who entered the environment then.
Okay. All right.
So like for me, like I've always just kind of been like, like I ain't doing it the way like a lot of people in my family do it. Like I'm gonna make sure that people got the same name and shit like that. In part because it was driven by like own insecurities.
Gotcha.
But
So
like
you
I've always
prioritize
been
that thought of marriage.
and doing things like in a quote unquote from a relate. Like I was at like so it's like I wanted to make sure I was fucking, but not a lot of bitches. Like so it's like I've been fucking for an early age.
But
What niggas talking about? Like, I was like, nah, just let me get that one right there, and we gonna work that out. we gotta see what we could do, you know, like so it's like I've just had long term people. I just haven't been mixy, if you will, until I was in that whole phase when I met my wife.
gotcha.
And I was like, this whole phase is not it. This is not it.
You're a different type of nigga.
Yeah, I think
years
so.
sometimes for niggas like me to figure out
That whole phase is not it.
almost a decade.
I can't even fraud. I think I lean closer to women. So I got married at 19. And of course, you know, getting married that young, it comes with its own level of having to learn self. As I'm even at like 25, I'm sure that I figured between 25 and early 30s is between 25 and to about 31, 32 is like where I figure, you know, well, at least for me is when I really start to figure really who I was out, and like where I realized like I don't really care what everybody's doing. Like this is what I stand on, and you know what I mean? And the question, this is my question, because like it sounds like what we was trying it sounds like you were more into the idea of like more of a partnership, right? So you and
No
your wife
question.
are more like partners in the marriage, right?
I can't like my mom, like at the end of the day, my mom is my mom. And that's the person that I admire the most. So if I'm dating a woman who in theory is gonna be the mother of my kids, I got an example of what I'm looking for.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? Like so for me, I'm like, I'm not looking for quote unquote my mom work. Like she made sure she worked. She made excuses. Like I gotta go to work. Like it was no option. So like for me, it's like the idea of like a quote unquote traditional, like it's like I get it. There are moments. My wife hasn't always worked throughout the whole duration of our marriage. I haven't always worked throughout the whole duration of our marriage. So it's like there has to be an ebb and flow to me in a modern environment, because back then it's like, I mean, fuck. It's not until the 70s, like, let's be clear, right? This is where it's like, let's just be clear. Women up until the 70s, when we talk about society, were legally property. They were the property of the father, and then they became the property of the husband. They had no right to vote. They had no voice. They had less than niggas did. Okay, this is why they even got a whole feminist movement, because they're like, but these niggas got civil rights.
This is a fact. Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
So this idea of marriage traditionally was in large part based on what we know it to be. It existed in black and brown cultures elsewhere too, like polygamous marriage and all. Like marriage has always been around, but like what we know it to be, like it's from this like property driven sort of model, and it's not until just 20 or 30 something 40 in the 70s years ago where women actually are, they're more in college than us now. We're more in prison than them now. It's like so many things have happened between the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Like we can't be traditional anymore. They've been so strategically targeting black males. We can't do this like in a traditional path anymore to still have quote unquote strong families. So to me, if you are looking for that, it's like, why do you want a piece of like you should want someone who can bring as much, if not arguably more in certain areas to the table than you. Like, why would you, like, this is what I'm saying. This is like that white mindset. Like, why would you, like, a white man is the one who said, nah, fuck that. I'm going to get a wife and a daughter and tell both of them bitches they ain't shit.
Well,
that's a white man
mindset. And so, and now I have to
That's
give
right.
Hey,
That's facts.
It's about to get good.
It's about to get good.
Traditional.
Because I'm not king traditional. I'm not king traditional, but I wasn't going to even really try to give pushback until it was almost like a demonization of the idea, right?
All right, go ahead.
So, in my understanding, or at least how my marriage has worked, right? And I ain't gonna fraud it. Like at 19 being married, I was in the army, right? So we got married like when I pretty much got in the military, and so initially my wife has never worked. So initially, it was this whole dictatorship kind of idea. You know what I mean? But as you go into I guess as you become a man and you start learning yourself, I realized that I mean, at the end of the day, I care for people. And then especially, come on now, you start to care, you realize that you care more for the people that are closest to you. Even in my friendships, like literally, you know what I mean? I care for my friends. I check up on them, make sure everything is straight with them all the time. And so within my marriage, you know what I mean? I realized that the things that I value about myself don't necessarily have to be pretty much what I'm saying. Let's just say it this way. I like for my old lady's priority to be the house. I like for her priority to be the kids, which we just, you know what I mean, this is a fairly new thing. Well, I've been having with my daughter be 3 in a couple months, but I like for her priority to be the house, not worrying about the stresses and all of this shit outside of that, because at the end of the day, if we're both trying to do everything, this is just my, you know what I mean, as a young mind growing, if we're both trying to do everything, then it makes it so where there's more margin for error. If you have your primary focus and I have my primary focus, and we're both, that's, you know what I mean, then you're holding your end, I'm holding my end.
So,
and it made it easier for me because at the end of the day, first, like I'm not a dude, I'm not cooking nothing. You know what I mean? I'm not the cook guy. You know what I mean? I know my strengths. My strength is.
Hey, hold on. Don't downplay yourself. You put a fire plate on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, show
I
that
did.
plate. Show
I
that
did.
plate.
I did do it, but that's it ain't been done again since. That was the first time. and see, hey, I posted it. Like, yeah. If you know me, this was a piece. It's not that, because the thing is that at the end of the day, if you actually put your mind to doing something, you can do it. It's not like impossible for me to make a plate, but it's just not something that I want to do. I don't want to be primarily thinking about making sure the house and the everything, you know what I mean, the house is straightened up. I don't want that to be my primary. I want to be the one that's out making, you know what I mean, getting the credit scores up, the one that's you know what I mean, because I mean, that's the way it's been that way the whole time. I started at 19, taking care of everything. I've been doing it my whole life, my whole adulthood. I've been doing that. So that's pretty much what, you know what I mean. That's what I know. So I think that, like, and I'm as we start talking more and more on the pod about it, like, I understand the the more modern aspect of it. Like I understand, the contribution and everything. But I wouldn't want. I don't. Me myself. I don't want a career woman because like at the end of the day, I want for your priority to be like when I got like let's say me and my wife. I want her priority to be like making sure the homework's checked and making sure the kids getting their snack, making sure that like.
Can I
these
interject
things
with a
while
question?
I'm at work, I want you to be worrying about then, like the house, everything that goes on there. You know what I mean?
Can I
Absolutely.
interject with a question? Because I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, and I agree. Ultimately, roles have to be defined. Mm-hmm. You got to have roles. Mm-hmm. Now, what the role is, I think, is where the two people make a relationship, right? Like, so I say to say, like, what if your wife doesn't want that for her role?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because upon meeting my wife, she was already set to do her 3-year stint as a diplomat, and like she's already career oriented.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to tell her like, nah, I need you to do this or so. It's like, so what if they don't want that role?
And that's a great question. So the thing is that like if they don't want that role, and that's where you can't be a traditional person trying to make a modern woman traditional. So that's where you gotta, like you said, the vetting process. If that's what you want and that's not where she aligns, that shit ain't gonna work. You should know that off the top.
Yeah.
If you should know that from to begin with. Like if that is what you want, and that's like a foundational, you know what I mean? That's a foundational understanding. That's like where you start to build from. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's like the basics. So yeah, if that's not what she wants, and that's kind of what type time you want, then y'all should go ahead and immediately. Ain't no need in wasting no time.
Right.
Ain't no need in wasting no time.
I guess a follow up to that then would be, especially both of y'all got married really young, in which we can all attest that us as men, we've evolved into different versions of ourselves.
For sure.
Women too. This is where I'm going with it. Where what happens inside, like, say, a scenario, we can extrapolate it from this personal into like more into the ether. What happens when then that person evolves into wanting to do a little bit more? Yes, sir.
Yeah, but it's like, even if you're not a housewife, right? Like in today's world, traditionally, right? If you weren't a housewife, what were you? You couldn't work. You couldn't, like, what were you if you weren't, like, there were no
that's crazy
options.
to think about.
Yep.
I never even thought about that. Like
there weren't even no fucking options.
What were you doing?
That's what you hanging your hat on. Like, I'm a fucking wife, bitch. Look at my fucking spread on the dinner table, man. All the fixings.
I'm killing it.
Homemade.
They say
My kids eat from scratch, bitch. What are you talking about? Like, this is before the 70s, there was nothing else.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
facts.
yeah.
There
No,
was
that's
nothing
facts.
else.
That's facts.
Bitch, look at what I cook in. Dress, laid, hair, curl. Bitch, I'm just cooking.
She out there.
Yeah.
So I say it's like, women want more because there's options.
Big facts.
That's
And
It's
I think
options.
that
And they got dads who are like, no, fuck that. You're not gonna be like these other bitches. If you had you got a son.
parents raising their
Yeah, I
kids
have a
to be
daughter.
more than housewives.
The reason why my wife is how she is because of her mom, but in large part her father. He was like, I'm not raising no woman to be like traditionally, and we have to accept that. Like,
no, it's fair.
I got a question for you, bro. Kind of piggybacking on what Quint said as far as like people may evolve after 10
question.
years. You know, you guys have been together. I'm sure both people have evolved. Nobody's the
question.
same person they are in 2023 that we were in 2013. So, for the success of your marriage, how do you guys evolve together, or how do you make sure that evolution happens
great question.
together?
Goes back to one of the original points of you got to be clear in your communication and what you're experiencing, and you can't leave that up as a guessing game for the other party to figure out.
Okay.
You can't be sitting here mad at your guy because he didn't know that that's what you wanted tonight.
And you didn't tell him.
Fuck out of here.
Okay.
Like, did you tell me we was gonna do some shit? Like, it's only, but like, I can't let it, like, you have to be clear in communication
Okay.
for it to work. while you change over time because like nobody changes overnight. It's a process. So for example, I'm going all in on trying to make a podcast. For example, it's an investment, time, equipment, space, etc. I can't just overnight pop up like, yo, sweetie, look at all this podcast shit I got down here in the room, right? Like,
Right.
there's a conversation about, yo, I've been thinking about doing, like, it's like she knows where I'm moving. You have an opportunity to interject along the way if you're kind of not with, like, let's talk because we're together here. Like,
Okay.
I can, and the other thing is it requires sacrifice, true compromise, where you are selfless, where literally this is the person where you do it and you don't necessarily get anything out of return other than helping them. I took a loss, but damn, set them up perfect. You got to be selfless and you got to communicate. It has to be unconditional. Like, it's got to be unconditional and it's got to be clear communication if you're going to continue to grow together versus grow apart.
Right.
You grow apart as soon as you start assuming, as soon as you start being quiet, as soon as you start where niggas go wrong is
Agreed. Yeah.
they get afraid of how she's about to act. And they don't be truthful. And then they start to they either just get mute or they start lying like a motherfucker. That's what it's. You either just be like, or you start lying instead of being honest.
Nah, that's
And you can't let her reaction, which goes back to the first thing, those react like how crazy do you react to me when I'm honest with you? Because I gotta be honest, and you can probably tell how I communicate here. Like I get to it.
That's one, bro. And see, I think that, and then the funny thing is, you ever heard of somebody that been working on the same thing their entire life, on the same thing about themselves?
Oh, I got an attitude problem, but I'm working on it.
You've been working on it for 25, 30 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That shit right there. And I think that's the thing. I think that because it's very easy as a man to become mute. And I think that,
Explain what that mean. I don't know what that means.
mute pretty much saying like even when Taj was saying when she was saying that her friend, that every time she says something to him, he just wants to pretty much just act like it's just like a bit, like he don't want to really talk. You know what I mean? It makes it so that the fact that you respond the way you respond makes it so that I don't want to talk to you at all.
I'm just gonna avoid conflict.
I'm gonna avoid, and in avoiding conflict, as time continues, I start to avoid you in its entirety. Then we end up living in the house in two separate rooms. You know what I mean?
You start to anticipate the conflict. You know what? Let me stay out. Let me get one more drink. She should be asleep by 10.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And that right there is literally a big part of the problem, I think. It's not necessarily, like, I ain't saying that dudes don't just go and, you know what I mean, cheat in marriages off of the strength that they don't have discipline. I ain't saying that that's not the thing. But I think a lot of the times it comes from a place to where it's just like, I don't really want to talk to you. Like, I don't really know how to, and aside from that, this was a question that I wanted to ask you. How do you, in a long-term marriage, how do you continue to keep that, I guess, togetherness, or that you know what I mean, that time for each other and making that a priority? How do you do that?
All you could do. So we don't have kids, so I got to be clear there. Like, once kids are in the equation, a lot changes, right? I think one of the mistakes that a lot of married couples make is they get married and then within a year, 2 years, they have kids before they really like spent a lot of time together, understood each other more, like built the foundation, and now you got kids and nothing's ever the same, right? And so like for us personally, it's like, one, nobody has to be here. Like, this is the things, like in our dynamic, there's nothing holding us, like we don't have kids. We've been married 10 years, you know what I'm saying? It's like, look, if you really not fucking with me, like, you're not fucking with me.
You're here because you want to be here.
Yeah. And that's just, like, at the end of the day, if she don't want to be there, if you don't want to be there, it's toast. So again, that communication.
So I got a question.
Do you want to be like, you got to check in, like, are you cool?
Mm-hmm.
Is this, you trying to do another year or two of this, 3 years, 4 years? Like, we good? Am I fucking up? Like, you got to communicate.
Right. Do you think that the fact, it sounds like y'all don't have like I think all relationships have a level of dependency, but there's no like specific dependency in which you have to worry about this person is with me because like if we extrapolate it like extremes, like if you're the athlete and your girl just is like, you know what I mean, like she's just a pretty face, you have to worry that she's with me because of like all these other different reasons, but because she's dependent upon the lifestyle that I can bring her. But if both people are able to provide for themselves inside a good enough manner, then you truly understand and know the fact that we're here for an actual this is, we're both on the same page on the reasons why we're here.
Yeah, it's purpose driven.
There we go.
And to the point there, it's like her happiness is not on me, bro.
That's
Okay.
another good one.
It's not on me. And I don't have to wake up putting that on her either.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta show up fucking, good morning. You look awesome. You know, like, you gotta be, you can't let her
Because
dictate.
you don't have a specific leverage over it, so you still got to do the things.
I gotta do it.
Because at any point she could be like,
Hey, she a pretty face too.
Right, like,
yeah,
like,
hey, I gotta do
this
it.
nigga,
I gotta
somebody
do
else
it.
will.
I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. And
because especially when you take
gonna
away the
try
kids,
it.
like there's no kids there,
No
and
kids.
each person are independent of themselves. The relationship has to be like an actual, like you said, the ebb and flow. Like both people have to actually
It's a
put
partnership.
something towards it intentionally to make the other person happy and make themselves happy, because like you said, nobody has to be there. I think
That's pretty solid.
yeah.
Nobody has to be. So it's like, I don't put my happiness on her.
Mm-hmm.
That's not on her. I don't put my success on her. That's not on her. Conversely, she shouldn't put that on me.
Right.
And when we talk about like this traditional, like being support, like it is my duty to support her. From a modern standpoint, support does not look, in my opinion, does not look the same from a traditional standpoint.
Yeah, it's
for
not
sure.
based on resource and monetary.
It somewhat is, in that
Okay.
I need to be able to, worst case scenario,
Hold it down.
hold it down. So that does require something of me to a certain standard.
Yep.
To where if my wife is pregnant with a child, if she can't do something for an extended period, we don't go hungry, we don't go without shelter. Like, we got our needs taken care of. People can go to the hospital, whatever the case. That's on you as a man.
Yeah.
Period. Now, is it on you to provide the highest level of all of those things necessarily? No, I don't necessarily think so. You know, it's all within your means. But like, what can you do within your means to provide for the partnership? And so I feel like that's my duty to like be here. And like when I met my wife, to talking about roles, I defined the roles from the start. I told her upon dating, and this was that era, I said, look, and I'm gonna be honest too. It's like, you meet somebody, you can tell when certain people are special. Otherwise, you wouldn't like say, I'm gonna date you longer than others, right? So I told her, like, you say I'm unique, right? Like, unique, okay? She's unique. And I said, I'm not fucking that up. And I knew it. So I said, she treating me right. She giving me respect. She making way more than me at the time too. Like, she already got her career. I'm doing something now. Like, but she giving me the utmost respect, treating me like how a man would like to be treated, I would say. And I said, look, the way our relationship gonna work is that you are fucking LeBron, but I'm D Wade. So the way this is gonna work is that you like, I put like I know my back. I'm not a fucking hard worker. Like, I didn't go to the best schools and all this other, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, what I'll say about like up until that 20, there's a certain level of rigor that has to take place. Like, you don't fall into, say, a UNC or a graduate school at Duke because you was just trying.
Of course. Yeah,
Right.
yes.
Like,
I get what you're saying.
She had went to UNC undergrad, met her while she was finishing up grad school at Duke, and she's going to be a diplomat. And she's we're going 25 here. I'm like,
That's she doing something
No,
right.
it takes a
She
certain
doing
level of
something
focus
right.
minded.
yeah, I was like, you
Like,
got some shit figured out.
yes.
You doing some shit all right, and you ain't even here, and you're treating me in a way that's like actually like you fucking with me though. You feel me? Like you know when a girl's fucking with you.
Right.
Let me ask you this. Oh, well, this ain't the question, but just you saying that, does how was her family relationship? Did she have a 2-parent household, or
Oh yeah, she
how
was
was her
both.
relationship with her dad?
Both her parents have PhDs. They were separated, but both her parents have PhDs. For the bulk of her upbringing, she's the oldest of, or she has siblings, and between her mom and dad, she has two siblings, and she has an older sibling that her dad had before he had met the mom. So she has an older sibling, and then she grew up in a household where she was the oldest of three siblings. But two parents with PhDs, like black too. Like me and the dad is super cool.
Dope.
The utmost respect for the mom. South side of Chicago. You see what I'm saying? Like very humble folks, even with PhDs, if you will. Very, very like I don't have like anything bad to say about my wife's parents. Like they could come over anytime. You feel what I'm saying? Like no warning either. Oh, your mom's coming, your dad's no worries. They can come over. Open welcome.
Yeah, and I wanted, but I want this is my next question. This is the one that I wanted to ask a moment ago because we've had this conversation amongst each other, and we even went and looked at statistics and all kinds of shit about it. So, do you believe that? Oh no, let's say this. At what age do you believe people should get married?
Marriage ain't for everybody, and there is no magic age. And so
Okay, well let's
you
just
should
go
not be getting married if you're not emotionally and mature enough to deal with the realities of what a marriage is. You should not be getting married because you want to have a wedding, for example. You should not be getting married because you have a kid, for example. You should necessarily like you should not be getting married if the two people don't want to just be with each other unconditionally.
So let me ask you this:
period.
when you got married, do you think that you understood what marriage was?
Great question. I had an understanding that has evolved and changed as I further understand what it is.
So,
Yeah.
and I'll ask that just to make sure when you, and that's, I mean, that was a great answer to the question. Would you, well, I guess I wouldn't ask that because obviously, based on the way it sounds, you made a, I'm not saying you made a great decision. Sounds like you made a great decision, and
I say it's the best decision I personally ever made as a human being
Yeah.
was the wife that I chose.
That's dope.
And I emphasize that I chose. She didn't choose me. I chose her.
Gotcha. So I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna try and like extrapolate a little bit more. So rail is probably well. I'll ask this question, and you can tell me if this is close to what you was segueing into. Where sometimes we have conversations, and if for us, we look at the podcast as kind of like a space for growth for black, somewhat middle class men in understanding themselves and what they're trying to get to and reach. So we have a lot of like these conversations of what, on average, we believe that might be good for the betterment of the black community, betterment of us as men. And we've had conversations where we've talked about, do we think that it would probably, on whole, of course, like nuances and nothing's 100%, but on whole, if a person gets married earlier or a little bit later, earlier, let's say we can put that at between 18 to 24. What do you want?
I would say you're 24, 25, and then
Okay, all right. Or if you're waiting and you get like just say 30 and 30 to 35. So yeah, what say you?
I would say that, let me answer it in two ways.
Okay.
If you wait till 30, 35, I think the idea of long-term partnership becomes more difficult.
Speak to it.
Is you get more stuck in your ways. It just is what it is.
Okay.
You buy your own house. You go through life, and you've already gone through a lot of life already. Its own like sort of first iteration. Like and you have your own sort of way of doing it. And it's like, I'm my mom's only child, but I have siblings. So like, if you're not used to compromising and used to sharing and hearing other people's input and making a selfless decision, how are you going to get used to being selfless at 35 when you haven't had to practice it up until that point, when you've just been super selfish? So I would say
So you air closer to like younger.
younger, I would say younger. I would say younger, but the challenge with younger is there's not as the same level of maturity. So
That's because I air close on like the probably around like the 30ish 30 like in your 30s a little bit only off of the strength of like I know me when I was younger. I think y'all two are actually like really good cases of, to me it almost I look at them as like outliers for what a lot of scenarios end up being. If you just look statistically, if you look at like even anecdotal, where getting married really young and the evolution of people and how people end up outgrowing each other and ended up on like separate pages. Yes.
okay, let's just talk realistically too. We talked about women, 1970. Let's talk about the evolution of marriage
Yeah.
and the idea of getting married young. Let's just start at grandparents. How old were your grandparents when they got married?
Yeah.
Or did your grandparents get married?
My grandparents
my
were married, but it was young because my grandparents were, when my granddad died, I think they was at 63 years.
Okay.
So they had, I don't know the exact dates, but it had to be late teen, 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there.
So I make that point to say I would suggest that we're not getting married so young. As time moves on, we're getting married even older and older.
Oh no, I agree, and I think that that goes to the point in which you were speaking about earlier. When we go to the 1970 revolution of what women's lives look like, which then translates itself into what marriage is going to eventually look like. Because of now, like women are now not looking at 18. I'm trying to find a husband. It's more so I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying to find then a career. Like even with your wife, she was inside like her multiple phase of like school, grad school. Like she was still inside the path of finding herself, in which a lot of people now are looking to get solid footing before, to where like there's not a person that might have leverage over them. So then we can get into a scenario like yours, where I'm not with this man because of he pays all the bills. I'm with this man because I love him. And yeah. So that's my pushback to you.
So it's like, okay, so if if we talk about old versus young, I would say the sweet spot for marriage, if I'm being honest, is probably 25 to 30. And I would say it's to your advantage to meet and build and go through life with a partner early on, because the thing about life is cyclical. So you deal with something in your early 20s, it's coming back late 20s, early 30s. Like it's the same thing, just different. So if we already have experience dealing with finances together, seeing how you trip if I spend too much, or knowing yours, like, to me there is advantage like in growing with each other. But to me, where people go wrong is they put too many expectations on the partner. It's like you get married and you expect a wife to be a wife, and a wife expects a husband to be a husband. But why can't you expect them to be what they've been and who they are? Right? And when my wife wakes up, there's no expectation. She not expected to clean. She not expected to provide dinner that night. She not expected to do nothing other than please do your best at the thing that we discussed. You see what I'm saying? Like no expectation other than what was laid out that she said she wanted for herself.
Gotcha. I guess my last back and forth on this would be so I was recently listening to something in which there was some interesting statistics that kind of can go into this conversation, where they was talking about marriage and divorce, and with that there was, I think that a lot of times we end up having the conversation like wrong ways, where we're talking about like how often people get divorced, instead of like looking at what reduces divorce and what people that stay together long have commonalities in, right? And they was kind of speaking to that, and one that was a major one where they said what, it was two things, but one of them was what drastically changes marriage and divorce rates is income. And the more money people make, the less they get divorced. Like it becomes like a very drastic change inside like divorce rates. The other one was the fact that they have similar belief systems. That could be religiously and politically. But they have similar belief systems, but like finances, especially once they hit that 100K mark, like it became a drastic change inside a divorce rate. So I use that to go back to the same conversation where we then look at that. And then we look at, if we're talking about black men, black families, in which I think sometimes we have like these different conversations where a lot of times I've also heard the idea of like, hey, don't really worry about talking to like dating, worry about getting your GDP up, your own like value as a person and what you're actually able to bring to the table and what you like who you are. And I think that that in itself is like something that's valuable when it comes down to it. And if we look at what people typically are able to bring when it comes down to like a younger marriage, it falls into that demographic where as black people, we probably aren't able financially, we're probably not financially stable enough to hold together marriages inside like that part where we understand a lot of majority of marriages fall apart off of finances.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel what you're saying. So while everything you're saying is spot on true, the the couple things. One, it's like 50% of marriages end up in divorce is roughly the rate, right? But at the end of the day, if you're a straight man and you want a relationship with a black woman or just a woman, period, like the going rate for success is way lower than 50.
For sure.
Like way lower. Like
Okay.
so you could maybe argue that though marriage is 50% divorce, it's a higher success rate than like just doing other stuff. You could make that argument.
Explain what you mean. I guess I'm trying to understand. Because to me, I'm looking at, if we look at what successful relationships. So
So
then,
that's the so there's a people
my bad, successful marriages, like ones that don't end in divorce.
that don't end separated, correct?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Because who's to know of the 50% that are married, how many of those are happily married, right? Like that's a whole
It's
other
the big fact.
conversation,
Yep.
right? So if we define success by together, 50% of marriages stay together. Whereas how
Okay.
many percent of casual relationships stay together?
Oh, probably not a lot. I'd
So-
probably say like it's probably on like the 5 percentile.
So that's why I'm saying you could argue that if your goal is to have a relationship, that's your best outcome. You could make that
Oh, no,
argument.
all right. So I guess maybe you're misinterpreting what I think people should get married.
Okay.
So I'm not arguing that you shouldn't get married.
No, I'm not saying
Okay.
okay. I'm not saying you're not. I just want to point out when people point out that 50% of people get divorced. Consider what other types of relationships end in breakups too.
Oh,
I just want to say that for
I think
people
he's just
watching.
saying, he's saying marriage is like it's a certain type of glue to your relationship.
Yeah, like to your point about finances breaking up and the 50, it's like, yeah, so it's like we don't want to let the 50% steer us away from driving toward it because that's still better chances than, to me, trying to do it other ways. With the finances piece, to me, the thing is like life is expensive. And most people, especially in that 25 to 30 range, if you're not married and you're out here living, you probably are looking for a roommate or some sort of like somebody to split the cost. Do we agree or disagree?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Like if you're actually like still trying, if you've not reached a certain income level and you're trying to build, I think you
Like the
I don't know if this is off camera, but you was like, you want to be able to, damn, how did you phrase it? It was about income, and when it comes down to like for an extended period of time, be able to save costs.
right, right,
Everybody's looking
exactly.
to do that. Like so, yes, but that's definite. I agree.
But it's tough to do that without some sort of roommate. Now, I would argue that in that 25 to 30 range, if you do that with a real partner,
Oh no, I agree.
and so that's why I respond to the finances. Are you mature enough to not have like where I went? So where I don't. So in my dating background in that past, what was a huge red flag was when I meet a girl and there's a certain expectation that I'm going to be like her father, or I'm going to provide for this household in its very traditional way, and she have these very like I wasn't looking for that very traditional minded
Woman.
yeah. And so if that's what that woman expects, she's already set herself up if she's out here looking for marriage at 25, because most people aren't going to be able to give that, and it's just it's already not even on the same page. So are you on the same page about your finances? Are you in, so it's one thing to get together and be broke, but it's like, did y'all get together and y'all mad about how much y'all spent on the wedding, and y'all mad about where y'all stand, and y'all mad like the lifestyle, the clothes, he don't want to pay for this, he like y'all already getting married mad about finances versus being clear and communicating. So it's like, as long as you on the same page and you're willing, like you and your both of you can help each other get past that 100K threshold.
Well, I think, real. I feel like you've been. I seen like some steam coming off the top of your head over there for a little bit. It seemed like you had an interjection or a question or a statement to make a couple times. What you got?
Oh
for me, bro?
no. I was I don't know. I'm just listening. You know what I mean? I'm just listening at this point because, like, you know, my first thing, like, oh, it sounds good. You know what I mean? That's how I respond to most things um that sound good. Like I say, it's just I think that marriage is just a lot tougher than we like well, at least that I've seen people like really.
I think marriage is probably the toughest thing
Bro,
that
it's
men and
the
women embark on in
absolute
life.
toughest. It's the
For sure.
absolute tough, bro. It's more people retire from the military than die married. You know what I mean? It's literally the most difficult thing. And to go back with what he was saying, like, oh yeah, people, as you know, you continue to go through the years and people change for sure. And I guess the best thing you can try to do is to try to change and actually at least have a conversational relationship to where y'all both know where the changes are happening. You're discussing them as they're occurring. But another thing is that, like he said, what happens when that traditional woman gets older and no longer wants to be traditional? The thing is that I think, like, honestly, to be completely honest, I don't think that, and I said this few episodes ago, I think that we need to sit out for a while on it. I don't think we have an understanding of each other well enough.
What does that mean? We need
Sit
to
out on marriage, right? I think
so
that
you
we
think
should.
that people should kind
I
of
think
like,
we should. I think we should
so
sit
that
out.
you're
So,
advocating for like getting married a little bit later.
at this point,
Yeah.
and honestly, the statistics said that later marriage, well, which the highest chances you're gonna have is the later marriage, but then that only averages 8 years. So with that, I think that's going to continue to decrease. I don't think that we're in a place to where we have enough selflessness. Western society doesn't teach it. We aren't selfless enough to even understand what it entails. Then when you start bringing other individuals, kids into it, there's another level of selfishness that come with children. I don't think we even in a place where, and that's why, yeah. And then the idea of like, first, love ain't gonna do it. Love ain't gonna make your marriage work. That just ain't gonna be it. You can love the mom to death and da 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 da. That ain't gonna do it.
Do you think love is an important component to it though?
I would say love as in like
What is love?
yeah. So like and that's and that's what like I think for me love is, or it's an action where it's like my sense of responsibility to you. That's more what I feel love is.
Love is a verb. It's a verb. It's not a.
Right.
Hold on, say that one more time.
Love to me is my sense of responsibility to you, or how much of how much of you I am responsible for. How much, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm responsible for you. That means that like, yeah, I love you in a way that like I am willing to do what it takes for me to get
So
the
for you,
outcome for
love is more
you.
so responsibility
It is
based.
it's yeah, responsibility based. Me, it's
That's the
like
interesting
caring. It's
definition of it.
caring enough to take responsibility for the other person. I don't think that it's like this mystical thing. Like you can like, and I think that people like literally we define words and keep redefining them and keep redefining them when it feels good to make a valid point. And to me, I like that's really one of the. And I posted about that the other just like yesterday on Facebook. The shit agitates me all the way, but. I don't think, like I say, I don't think love's going to do it. I think it's more of the sense of responsibility for one another. Like the reason why
But
I
how
do
you
what
define it, that sounds like love.
say it again,
The way you define love, that sounds like love.
like what the
You said the sense of responsibility for each other.
right,
You define love being responsibility based. So
right,
that
right, right.
sounds
Oh,
like
okay.
love.
I thought you were saying yeah for my definition of love.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
like
yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
then would be keeping the marriage together. By how you defined love.
You said love will be keeping the marriage together.
All right, so you just defined love as being responsibility based.
Right.
You just now said that
You said that
responsibility would be what keeps a marriage together. That then sounds like love keeps the.
right, but that's in a sense, and the thing is but a lot of people don't define love in that way. This is after
Well, I'm just talking about like how you just defined it. So for you, love
So
would-
for me, love and probably love and respect, love and respect, those two, it based in the way that I define it. But I don't think most people define it that way. Based on what I understand, most people don't define love
Well,
as a responsibility.
no, I get it, but love is such a vague term that we can have an entire podcast.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
About what is love?
Yeah. But I'm just going off of your working definition.
Got you.
It's just at the end of the day, when two people want to be together, you can't pull them apart.
Yeah, and I thought that you defined love earlier without saying the word love. When it was like that unconditional want to be with each other, where there's no reason to be together. Like you have no dependency to it, and like you still decide to be together.
Right.
And then like dependencies and different things like that can come. But when you have that, to me, like that agreement with each other, that I'm making the decision freely to be with you, and you're
But
making the
do
decision
you-
freely to be with me. That's what I'm closer to define love at.
Hey, I was staying with this 2023 January, which I said this shit last year, probably in one of the earlier pods, bro. I like to be optimistic about where we're going, but the trajectory, I don't see. Like I said again, I don't see marriage. I see that 50% ain't gonna be shit on what it's gonna be in the next 10, 15. I think that I'm not optimistic about the way that
I think that
we think about. Go ahead.
I think we control the outcome. I think that if we shift the conversation, it makes all the difference. In which I think this is with women, with dating, with marriage. We completely look at it from the wrong side. So we have so many conversations about what we don't like in women. Instead of like, say, what if we start shifting the conversation to, hey, these are the green flags that I specifically look for. And these are the things that I know for a fact. Of course, you want to be able to point out red flags as well. Same thing with like, on the whole, if we like successful marriage is 100%, right? So like we can look at what it looks like across the board with successful marriages
people, yeah.
and start like looking and extrapolating things that work across the board for these people and start, you know what I mean, like looking at these values and how we
Case
can
studies.
incorporate them.
Like case studies.
Right. But like there's millions of people that are married right now that
And that-
stayed married and
that
are
have been
married for
married,
like 6
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
There are things that are commonalities with them that we can sit and look at. And when we start like changing some of these conversations into like being more solution based instead of like diagnosing a problem. I have this problem even with like I had this problem with most things where like we sit and diagnose shit a lot.
Well,
This is like my thing with black culture in general as well when it comes to like we shall overcome. Niggas that diagnose some shit all the fucking time and don't come with a goddamn solution. And to me, I think the more that we start changing the mindset of being solution based, and I think we're conditioned to be diagnosers instead of being solution based. I think we changed the narrative and we changed it.
But no, I think that's something that's wrong with just not like we taking it and using this approach towards marriage that you broaden it out towards just black culture.
Yeah.
But it goes even into politics or just society in general, just the way that we live as a people. Everybody like we're 99.9% the same. Like everything, but you can choose to focus on the difference. There's small that difference, and it's a vast. That difference can take you a lot of ways. But we look at what we got the same. We look at the marriages that have stayed together, and we look at the solutions. You can definitely, die. You can get like a path for your own life, and you can help brighten that path for other people too. And I think that's.
I feel like I want to leave Real with the last word in this. I know Real. Once this start happening, he got something to say. What you got, bro?
No. Only thing I just I like the and actually I definitely agree with you on like being solution based, right? See, one thing that I you know what I mean. I talk to like all like a lot of dudes, and some dudes married, some not, and just I think that. Yeah, I think we, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I think we should take some time to get to know one another a little bit better with this transition that we're doing. This transition in the culture, in our who we are right now. I think that it's a good time for us to try to sit and understand each other before we start making these, because these commitments mean things that when the white man, when the white man, you sit there and build yourself up. Let's say you do get married at 32, 35. And you done everything to get yourself like, okay, so what we're going to be honest about prenuptials? Like,
I'm about to say,
what are we going to do
to
really like, there's a lot that goes into this thing. When you sit there and talk about from 35 till you die, it's 80. Like, these people, like, I don't know if people be actually thinking this thing all the way through. It sounds good. You know what I mean? It sounds good. But hey,
I like that right there. I think that'd be a good place to put a pin in it.
Okay. Move on to the next segment. Yeah, I'm about to say play the video. And this will give G a little context to it as well. I think the baseline is like making to a specific income level in which you're able to supply and do everything that you need.
Yeah.
Because you can't start the conversation when you're still in the scarcity mindset. But then there is now that next gray area where you then start choosing happiness and income and the balance of it. Where sometimes you have to sit and decide,
that's for sure.
If me making 20K more is worth me missing all of my kids' activities, the dance recitals, the practices, the games.
This whole getting to the bag, everybody, the bag, bro. It's about keeping your overhead low enough to where you can make a decent wage to where you can spend as much time as you can on the things that actually matter. That bag, getting to the bag, get everybody on that, bro. And it's like, bro, so you're for sale. That's like all of it means is that you're for sale.
We had a response off IG. I'll read that off. It's from my boy Jeff. Shout out my boy Jeff. But Jeff says, me and Alex literally just talked about this yesterday. When I broke up with my ex, I lost confidence of having my kids in the home every day. My work-life balance priorities shifted, and now I value my time outside of work more than ever. The perfect balance for me is finding a job where I can still earn high enough income to do the things I want, but maintain a healthy work-life balance to where I can gain fulfillment at work and earn what makes me feel good while refusing to sacrifice my family time to do it. So that was a great response from Jeff. We wanted to read that out there. I think that's definitely key, is finding a job that can give you that balance, or even if you have to sacrifice what you think is a good job to take a job that gives you that balance.
And I think he gives like a real life example of what we speak to a lot, where this is somebody, he's a high earner. He is a high earner. He makes really good money, but speaking about the eventual sacrifice for like personal happiness that might come at the expense of your income at moments, when it comes down to what really in your heart makes you happy. And that can be like making sure that you see and are there for all the things that deal with your kids, that deals with your family. And I think it's like I said, he's like putting the bullseye on the exact point that we hit on. Real.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I agree 100%. And then also, Not even just the idea of like the hours. You know what I mean? It's not may not necessarily be the amount of hours that you're working, but the amount of pressure that you're
Mm.
under while you're doing the amount of hours that you're doing. How much mental, you know what I mean? How much it takes away from you, your, let's say, not even just your time, but your ability to actually be in the moment when
to
you're
be
in those
to be
moments.
present.
Mm-hmm.
To be, yeah, exactly, to be absolutely present and not still having the job on your mind when you're supposed to be. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Being present around your family and friends.
I dig it. So, G, what do you think about that whole concept of balancing income and happiness? There's some people that say you got to get to the bag by any means, and as a person, I'm a provider. Some people, uh, they prioritize happiness a little bit more. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think happiness is. I think ultimately happiness is like what makes you happy, right? So it's like for me, what if money makes you happy? So it's like, it's like happiness, like sometimes you got to do things that you don't enjoy to get what you want long term. So I think happiness is somewhat overrated in moments. Like you're not going to always be happy to get to your goal. So if your long-term goal is happiness, that's one thing. But if your long-term goal is financial, you got to understand that you're not going to probably reach that goal
Mm-hmm.
under this like dream of being happy along the way. Like it's gonna be something along the way that you're probably not gonna have.
So then, does that lend itself to say that you would prioritize in the family structure, making sure that you provide and like financially, like are there? And again, I don't know if you heard the earlier part of the conversation when we said you don't start this conversation until you like we started at a baseline
Hmm.
because you have to be able to supply and do specific things, and that's like a necessity inside a relationship, inside a family, inside any structure. But once you get there, then you start balancing out the idea of I could make a little bit more, but it's going to take me away from like say my family, say my kids, and these
Yeah.
like these different experiences. And some people will go with the idea of like that's more important, making like let's put it at 20K.
Hmm.
20K more, but you're already at a stable spot where everything is taken care of, and your family's happy. The idea is 20K as important as those different little things.
Big picture, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Big picture, probably not. But 20K is arguably significant. Like, cause it's like, can we put a number on where it would be to be okay? Because like 20.
All right, so let's start this conversation at I'll put it at 85K. So it'll take you from 85K to 105K.
I think it's important to
And
say Jeff has two kids though, also.
oh no,
And,
he does.
and so that's where I mean, like for me, we don't have kids.
Hmm.
So to
Hmm.
me the extra 20 that's all happiness in there where I'm not really missing
Right,
anything.
and that's why I'm trying to
So
make sure we
yeah.
keep it like circuited around like family.
Yeah.
But so let's like I said, so let's start it at 85. 85K to one, and it'll bump you to 105. But instead of working 40, you now working 65.
Yeah. Like to me, that trade off of time is more valuable than the salary. Ultimately, I value my time over the 20K.
Okay.
So I value being able to use my time how I would choose to use it if I'm going 85 to 105.
Okay. Okay. So all right. Sound like you answered it. What's it, Johnny? What you got, my boy?
So yeah, I think that'd be the perfect time to go to Who Asked You Anyway, featuring G.
All right.
First and foremost, definitely appreciate having a brother on and had a
Oh,
conversation
for
for
sure.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate you too,
Family,
bro.
marriage, pillars that I definitely stand on. So my question for you is that seeing how we have this conversation around marriage, I know for me personally, one of the reasons why I'm big on marriage is because I'm so big on family.
Okay.
I feel like marriage is, if there's one thing that I will point to help our community like build stronger families, I would point to the institution of marriage.
Okay.
I'd be curious to hear what that thing might be for y'all in terms of what's going to really be the one driver that really can move the black family towards stronger communities.
I err closer to marriage. I think marriage with two working people, because I think that in general, increasing the GDP of the black family, in which in turn puts us inside a space to be able to like start the trickle down effect of generational wealth is extremely important. That then goes into like now you're inside better school districts. Now you're inside like you get just different opportunities with the more general income that comes in, and I think that happens inside a partnership phase of a marriage, in where both people, or I mean, of course, like if you are a high earner, then it doesn't matter. But if I'm speaking from like a specific statistical space of what most black people are going to earn, I look at myself as trying to speak towards the black middle class and lower, upper lower class, right? Because those are going to be the most people that's going to see things. That's where most people are in life in general. If we look statistically across the board, that's the majority. And for them, I think that you want to find yourself the ability to get two working people, because statistically, again, the average man makes maybe 45K. Average household is 60K, right? And we need to actually be strategic with like us as black people and follow some of these things that we see a lot of other groups do. Where it comes down to a big piece of it is having that capital base to be able to make moves for the betterment of your community, for your family, and for yourself. That's where I'm at.
Word.
Real.
Yeah, I was just kind of taking in what Quintez. So you saying, just to make sure I understand, is it the financial part or is it marriage?
I put them together because I think that in general, that is the partnership that's going to put us further. Because of, I guess, like, yeah, just the way it looks and the way it is that we know that money is the game. Capitalism is the game of America, and we have to find a way to play the game smarter as black people.
But
That's just my take. And I think that marriage, with a partner that you're equally yoked and like y'all like all the things that G said, right? If we started at that foundation, it's not like the perfect world. I think that both people being able to push the family into where like you can really build, and of course, like this isn't like only that. If you are somebody that are able to compensate for just one person, cool. My main thing is that marriage and a strong income base, and then if I add another addendum to it, would be pushing your kids into STEM, pushing your kids into high earning fields, so that now we have a strong base, and then we're pushing our kids into a spot in which they're going to be getting into high earning degrees, and where like I go against the humanities. I go against like a lot of like the communication degrees, all these like the fluff degrees. Those are for people who have generational wealth to sit on, and you can do what the fuck you want. We don't have that leverage right now. To me, if we're talking about progression of the black family,
STEM is big. I gotta double down on that. Even if it's not high earning, that STEM is crucial because even if you're not high earning, you're just not gonna be able to earn if you don't know technology.
Big fact.
If you can't do big data, crunch some numbers.
Well, I think we're moving into a society to where if you don't know how to program a robot, you ain't gonna be able to have a job.
Big facts.
So
Automation on the way.
STEM is you gotta leave some answers, man, because that's where I was gonna go as far as like.
My bad. I stopped. He asked me for more, so I had to put
No, I didn't ask you for
addendum.
more of that. I was just trying to figure out where because he had a specific reason for saying marriage. That was a specific reason he had to go with marriage to actually. He feels that marriage, just as a singular thing, will help progress the black community. Then you were saying that marriage and financial gain.
No, I gave a very specific reason why the marriage would be.
He said marriage because of finances. The finance was more of.
But what does that have to do with marriage?
Because that's the partnership that will allow two incomes inside of one house to be able to
modern marriages.
Yeah, to
No,
where.
what I'm saying is that what does that have to do with marriage, though?
All right, you got it, bro. I think that I kind of laid it fairly clear. I'm
I
like,
think he's saying that the marriage
It
is
brings
the
some more.
driver to the financial foundation. Like you're gonna the financial stability needed to drive the community forward. You get that through the institution of marriage.
Two people, two incomes.
Yeah, but I guess I look at and I will just leave it at that. What do I think is the thing that'll push the community forward? I would say trying to get back to the idea of the village. I think that is us continuing to single ourselves away from the community and being so singular and focused on self. That is the thing that I think that if we actually started thinking in a way that will benefit more than just my family or just me and just you know what I mean, and actually start being more of a community. I think that will be the thing that will, because I think that community idea will literally end up being something that is progressive too. The finances, that's what I always say, it's not about paper, it's about position. So that if you are a community, then you as a community will build finances. If there is we all know and need know what the necessity is. But at first, that community piece is where you can actually start to get the idea that to get to the paper. And for like I say, that paper, not about paper, it's about position thing is really really big for me. Because it's like buying back your time. You know what I mean? Stop allowing everything else to raise your kids but yourself. Stop allowing everything else to tell your relationship how it should be but you and your partner. You know what I mean? Getting your time back. I think that getting your time back is one of the major things, and being a collective in the community.
Oh yeah. And I was gonna say I think marriage is. I don't think there's just one pillar that's gonna take. That's just we focus on this one thing. It's gonna change shit for Black people. I think marriage is one of those pillars we need to focus on. Quint said the stem. I do believe Black people we need to focus on. More than just. We need to focus on preparing our kids to be productive in the economy that we know is coming up in the future. It's just like you say. There's certain stuff you don't. They shouldn't even offer it at schools. Like they shouldn't even offer certain majors in like you pay. Think USC is like $18,000 a year to go to University of South Carolina. There's no reason you should be able to get like a degree in history.
Get you a job.
Yeah, there's no reason that should be a thing at a university that costs $18,000 to be at. I think that's a hustle. That's a whole hustle. I won't even get into that, but I think like the village. I think that's another pillar that we're gonna have to build on: community, family, friends, and stuff. But the next one to me is with those is ownership. We have to own our own and build out our own infrastructure, and we have to have ownership in a diverse group of industries too. I don't think it's just like I think we should be concentrated in one, but we should also have our own we should have our own doctors, our own lawyers, our own like engineer. I think it should also be like a collection of like Black owned firms in every industry, and we should be able to like reach out with all our talents and everything and touch all the different industries too with ownership and being able to own.
I'm gonna let Burrell go first, but then
I was just gonna drop a little
point.
I just was gonna drop a little tidbit out there. For people, first off, buying a home is not so far out of reach as we think it is. I want to say that buying a home is not so far out of reach as you think it is. Just get you something.
Right.
Get you a raggedy ass house if that's what you can get approved for. Get it. Just go ahead and get that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, what you do is just having it. Then we're talking about just as especially in Charlotte. You talking about equity, you know what I mean? You go ahead and get that raggedy ass house, put a couple dollars into it. You ain't got to do it. At the end of the day, you buying your first home is not your forever home. It's not supposed to be.
And just wait for the gentrification.
And just wait for it. You can capitalize off of it just like, you know what I mean? Because they ain't got a monopoly on the shit. Like, you know how many people bought their houses years ago?
Gentrification.
Years ago, 60,000, 50, 40,000. Motherfuckers selling their crib for $250.
Get them niggas out of here.
You know what I mean? Yeah, go ahead and get that raggedy ass house. Don't sit there and wait and act like this gonna be the last house that you ever can have. Like, it's not about everybody else. Get yourself situated. Get you some life insurance. You talk about generational wealth.
Life
Get you
insurance.
don't sit there and try to focus on I gotta get all this money now to create generational wealth. Bro, life insurance. Assets, buy a home. Yeah, that's how you create generational wealth. But the chance of you actually creating generational wealth at your 9 to 5, bro, is you ain't finna do overtime and get generational wealth, bro. Get some life insurance. You know what I mean? Get you an couple assets if you can, and start from there. Don't try to jump up. YouTube got motherfuckers thinking that you just gonna be able to jump up to this bracket. No, bro. You not much increase you really get staying at your job year to year. Like, just be realistic about it. Like, you know what I mean? You don't
That's where
have
that
to
two
have.
income come in.
Oh yeah.
Like it gives you more capital. But that's a debate for another day. Johnny, what you got for us?
Oh no, I think you're right. I think that is a debate for another day. We could keep on going, but I think that's a great place to leave it. I think that was a good show. I want to say appreciate you, G, for
Yes,
pulling
sir.
up
Yes,
on
sir.
us.
Sure.
Hey, shout your shit out one more time before we roll, bro.
Hey man, and I don't want to stir the pot, but generational wealth is a myth. That is a fact. Generational
Uh-oh.
wealth is a myth. That is what I truly believe. But we don't
We'll
gotta
have you
get
back
into
for
that
part
now. I
two for that.
pot to stir. But I have to say it's a myth. But with that said, definitely appreciate y'all fellas for having me on, talking more about it. Definitely hope to reciprocate
Oh,
the
for sure.
situation and get y'all on the G Shish Pod. But follow me, GSHPOD at G Shish Pod, the G Shit Podcast. Watch full episodes on YouTube. That's the only place you can see it right now or listen. Otherwise, you can follow that handle, Instagram, TikTok, G the King on Facebook. I appreciate everybody who tuned in and subscribed.
I know him as G the Headies, man. If I
That's
take
an
it back
OG.
to that.
The
If
headies,
we go there.
man.
But
a fact.
all right.
We ain't gonna get into that, but hey, we gonna link all bros shit down here. I was gonna say follow us on YouTube at the To Be Fair Show. Follow us on Facebook at the To Be Fair Show. Follow us on Instagram at the To Be Fair Show. Like, comment, subscribe, and what you got, Quint?
You know I was about to ask about that OnlyFans link.
He's killing me, man.
They be killing me, bro.
You might as well just create that motherfucker at this point, bro.
Killing me with it.
That's why I was just fucking with you on it.
But I think that's a good show, and we out.
Peace.